What's up, horror fans? It is Monday evening, so I'm talking babies. The Baby on HBO Max, episode 7. We are one episode away from the finale, and this show, it has never let down from the very beginning. What I love about this show more than anything else is the frantic pacing of this show. This is the penultimate episode, and it is 23 minutes long. Before I get too deep into The Baby, episode 7, this is the Lassercast. If you like our channel, if you give us a subscribe, we have tons of videos for you. We have an interview up with author Brian Asman. We have coverage of Season 4, Part 1 of Stranger Things. Pete and Pepper have a review of Episode 1. Charlotte and I review Episodes 2 and 3. We will be coming together to finish off that series very soon. I just saw David Cronenberg's new film, Crimes of the Future. Gave you a 1-minute quick review, no spoilers. So you could check all of that out. We have tons of stuff up on our channel. As well as reviews of the first 6 episodes of The Baby on HBO Max. I've been singing the praises of this show from the very beginning. It is really unlike anything else I've seen on television. And I'm getting nervous because not only was this the penultimate episode, but HBO Max just canceled one of my other favorite shows on the channel, which was Raised by Wolves. Pete and I reviewed every episode of both seasons of Raised by Wolves over on our sister channel, Comic Books Transformed. I don't know why I can't say that channel. Comic Books Transformed. If you are a Raised by Wolves fan, you can go check out those reviews there. They have an online campaign to try to get another streaming service to pick them up. Would love that because I really loved Raised by Wolves. So I'm getting nervous because here we are. We're at episode 7 of 8 of The Baby, and now I'm in that, like, really hope next week's episode doesn't end with a cliffhanger, only for them to cancel the show. This episode, called The Curse, hopefully the curse of HBO Max canceling my favorite shows doesn't continue. This was directed by Ella Jones, written by Sophie Goodhart, and one half of the show's creators, Sean Robbins Grace, the other creator, Lucy Gamer, produces. And this episode is about The Curse, which we saw, I believe it was episode 5, where it was the flashback to Helen and Mrs. Eves when she was younger. Noor, played by Sayan Sarvan, who is in this episode as well. We'll get to that in a minute. And she encounters Jack, the baby's father, Helen's husband, who she ran away from. And she basically throws him up against the fence and curses him. And I honestly didn't get at the time. To me, it just seemed like she was, obviously vengeful and angry and yelling, like, cursing at him. I didn't realize watching it that she was, in her mind, she was actually putting a curse on him, and she blames herself for that curse creating the baby and all of the evil that has come from this baby. I mean, obviously, we have fast-forwarded years now, decades, and we see Jack in this episode is on his deathbed as an old man. Mrs. Eves has gone from, Sayan Sarvan, a beautiful young woman, to, Amira Ghazala, who is obviously made up to be this frazzled, older, disheveled woman. There's this great sequence in this episode. I laughed out loud at the dialogue between them, but I also laughed at the editing of putting the baby giggle right at the right moments. Michelle Deswarts, who plays Natasha, the lead character, her and Amira Ghazala, Mrs. Eves, have this, like, almost jovial back and forth where they make fun of each other, and she's making fun of Mrs. Eve. She's like, you need to shower because you smell, you stink, you're dirty, look at you. I mean, they've just escaped from the craziness of the commune at the end of the last episode. So it's understandable. Also, Mrs. Eves says that she had a heart attack at the end of last episode. So she's really weakened in this episode, at least at the beginning. So yeah, the curse, the titular curse of this episode is the curse that Mrs. Eves believes she put on Jack and the baby. And now that they know Jack is alive, she thinks that if she kills Jack, it'll end the curse. But then they do a little studying about curses, and Natasha mentions that there's this piece of old lore that says that the curser and the cursee have to die, which leads to the finale, which we'll get to in a second. Let me try to speed up a little bit. Again, this episode's only 23 minutes. The pacing of the show is so great. It's frantic. All of the characters are interesting. There's this really tender moment where a character we've never really spent any time with, aside from a flashback sequence, Natasha and Bobby's father, Natasha calls him, and he mentions that he knows that Natasha reached out to Bobby, and whereas her and her mother have this completely antagonistic relationship for obvious reasons, she's very cordial with her father and loving with her father, and she says, I love you, Dad, and it's this like nice moment in the middle of the craziness. At the same time, Bobby, who was the star, Amber Grappy, the star of episode 6, she is trying to go back to her, normal life with her partner and their magician act, and she just can't do it. And they have an audition, and she just seems completely disconnected. Her partner doesn't seem as angry and upset at the fact that their adoption agent said that they would need to wait 6 more months. And so she's done, and she basically leaves her partner up on the stage tied up in like the knife throwing circle, and just says, I quit. And I guess we'll see where that ends up. Again, the dynamic of Natasha, who wants nothing to do with the baby, being put into this forced motherhood position, while Bobby, who is desperate to become a mother, is told, you want to be a mother too much, you need to wait 6 more months, is just horrifying in its own right. The fact that is a real thing that exists in this crazy, world that we have. Mrs. Eves and Natasha agree that they will go see Jack in the hospital, but they need to relax. Mrs. Eves takes a nice bath. She's visited by the spirit of Helen while she's in the bath, and together they kind of fall asleep together on the couch, thinking that they'll wake up in the morning and everything will be okay. We'll take the baby, we'll go to see Jack, we'll kill Jack if we have to. Mrs. Eves wakes up in the middle of the night, and she takes the baby, and she disappears on her own, and she's now has her agenda. She is going to fulfill the prophecy of this curse. She's going to kill Jack, and she's going to kill the curser and the cursee. So she's going to kill Jack and likely herself in the hopes that it kills the baby. Natasha has this great moment earlier in the episode where she's giving the baby a bath, and you can tell that the baby and Natasha are starting to bond ever so slightly, and she looks at the baby and she goes, I wonder what's going to happen to you, when we put this curse to rest. Are you just going to poof into a cloud? And the baby giggles, and the baby is just adorable, and the way that I don't know if the baby is actually giggling or if they're just cueing that music, that sound in, but the way that they edited it is so well. So Mrs. Eves goes off to the hospital with the baby. At the same time, Natasha wakes up and she is visited by the younger Mrs. Eves, Sean Sarvan, and she takes her into this almost haunted hallway. It reminded me of Repulsion, where the woman in Repulsion, the famous scene where she's walking down the hallway and the arms are sticking through the walls and they're trying to grab her. It reminded me of that. And she tells her this story of how this song and a woman, these brothers were trying to build a house, but it would always fall. And the only thing that helped them was they decided to sacrifice somebody. So they decided to sacrifice the next person who came over the hill, who happened to be one of their wives. And she said, okay, but when you entomb me in the wall, let me leave my breast out so my baby can, you know, suckle of me until I die. And which does, you know, this story of like a woman willingly letting herself die so that a baby can live for these men, that does not seem in what this show has been about so far. It seems almost like there's a trick being pulled on Natasha. And in the previews for next week, let's just say, you know, no spoilers, obviously, it didn't come out yet, but next episode, episode 8, the finale, is called The Possession. And it certainly seems from the previews on HBO Max that the baby has taken hold of Natasha. And the last thing that young Mrs. Eves tells Natasha in her dream is that maybe you don't have to kill anybody. Maybe there is no curse. Maybe what you have to do is give the baby what it wants. And what it wants more than anything is the love of a mother. And so we get to this incredible finale where Mrs. Eves goes into the hospital. Jack's new family, mom and wife and daughters, all leave. She goes in and just starts throwing gasoline all over him. And then she pours the gasoline on herself. And she's about to immolate the two of them. And he smashes a flower pot over her head. And now there's this brawl on the floor in front of the baby. She's trying to end the curse. And then it appears as if Jack has a heart attack or starts to die. She blames the baby. She says, no, you can't kill him. I have to do it. I have to end this. She goes to light the match, and that's when Natasha bursts in, knocks the lighter out of her hand, and takes the baby and says, there is no curse. I'm just going to give it what it needs. I'm just going to do what it wants. And she picks up the baby, and she goes, Mama's here. And that's where we end. She casually walks out of the hospital as the hospital kind of like springs back to life. And like I said, the next episode is called Possession, The Possession. And it certainly seems as if the baby or something haunted Natasha in her dream and gave her this idea that after all this time, she should mother the baby. I'm excited to see where this show goes. I'm hoping that they have an ending. I always come back to Futurama, one of my all-time favorite shows. It has nothing to do with the baby, but the last episode that Matt Groening made for Futurama, he made an ending which was a perfect ending to a season. But if they continued, if they got renewed for another season, nothing, it wouldn't have been like an end to the series. You could just easily continue. But that episode felt like a perfect endpoint just in case. And they ended up canceling it then. Obviously, it got brought back several times. There were movies. They brought it back again for other seasons. But that's what I hope they do here. I hope that the creators of this show, Sean Robbins Grace, Lucy Gamer, I hope that they have an ending planned for this season that is a just in case. Just in case we don't get picked up for a season 2, is there a satisfying enough conclusion to this single season story, or are they going to end on a cliffhanger, and then I'm going to be there like, oh, please, HBO Max, pick up the baby. From a standpoint of cost, this show seems like a very low-cost show. At least, you know, Raised by Wolves was a science fiction, special effects filled, you know, Ridley Scott production. There was outer space, there were spaceships, there were cyborgs, there were giant space worms. This is human characters doing human stuff. There's very little, if any, special effects. And, you know, there's a lot of on-location shooting. So, I'm just bring the baby back. It's such a good show. So, yeah, that is episode 7, The Curse. What did you think of this episode? Hit me up in the comments. Tell me what you thought. Tell me what you think is going to happen in the finale. You know, is Natasha going to make it? Is the baby going to kill everybody? I don't know. I'm very excited to see where this show goes. And I really appreciate all of you who have liked these videos, commented on these videos, you know, shared them, and talked to me on Twitter about this show. So let me know what you think is going to happen, and we'll see you very soon next week for the finale of HBO Max's The Baby.